Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 4/28/2025 to 5/2/2025. Very busy week in the markets with economic data and earnings. I'm very selective with the flow that I'm posting. I don't just post every piece of flow that comes in. This is kind of for newer people that might be tuning in for the first time. Very selective with the flow that I pull in. I recap all of our certain sectors of flow that I'm posting. And again, for anybody that's new joining in, majority of these are posted in Stock Hub. I do post everything in real time. I don't edit my posts. I don't delete anything. But a little shorter week of flow, so this is going to be a little shorter video. But we had a phenomenal week of flow with how short it was. So as always, we're going to look at the full range of the contract, kind of see where that whale possibly exited, kind of just the usual stuff, look at the raw flow feed, all that stuff. So let's get started here. So Monday, we had the 620 UNP 230 calls come in. So let's pop back to Monday here. So you can see when this one came in, and if we look at that flow here, you can see opening trade here, and you can always come back here up to the top, kind of just take a peek just to make sure it's not another large whale, because we did have some open interest there, but opening trade here, we had almost 800 contracts come in. So when we're looking at that raw flow feed, you can see that market tide on the day as well here too. So you can see a lot of call premium coming in here, call volume coming in there. So a good sign on the market, or the net premiums here. I was market tide, I watch market tide as well. So let's look at the raw flow feed here and how this stuck out. So all you can see is that flow started to come in. We have a repeated hits ascending fill. You can see that flow, that IV increasing as that flow comes in. Drops a little bit here, but it's not a huge part of the trade, and it's coming after a big piece of size coming in. You can see at the end too, we had another large size come in here, right at the ask. A little wider bid-ask spread too, so you're seeing that aggression here with it coming in at the ask side. We're not overlapping earnings, and you can see that spot is an ascending fill, so that's why this is being tagged here as an ascending fill. So now when we come out here, I'm going to pop this to Friday, and we're going to look at that full range. So you can see here's our original entry, 174 for that whale. We hit a high here, and we actually had an add here on the first. So you can see the first here, we had 1,700 contracts. Those carried over, so this was a no side. So we had to kind of wait for that open interest to update, but you can see that carried over. Then we hit our high on Friday here. They hit 270, that whale. Again, that average fill was 174, 175-ish to that 270. So that's a 54% move here. And looks like a majority of that volume's still in with a lot of time, or about 48 days on there. So that is our first one of the week. So up next, we have the Carvana 52260 calls. These expired Friday. These were weeklies, so this one a little tougher to kind of read, but this one did make a good move. So you can see here, this was our whale here coming in at 220, 228. I have it 228 on my spreadsheet. So coming back here to the 28th, we had a lot of volume, but we didn't have a ton carryover. So to me, we didn't have a big loss of open interest. We didn't have a big gain of open interest. This was about 700 contracts. Kind of hard to know that. Contracts probably traded hands a couple times in here. But this one, and this is one that I actually scalped too, but I sold it for a loss. So let's take a peek at Friday. So again, here was your whale here, that 217, 228 there. It's going to show it like that. You come here. You can see we kind of chopped for a couple days. Then we had a massive spike here on the first. And we did hit a high of 740 here on the first. That was a massive move there. Those went in the money. So those ran from that 228 to 740. That's 224%. You're probably not going to hold them too long, especially when you're down here. But this is kind of why I say you can always look for discounted entries and see if that whale's still in. A little tougher one here with it being a weekly and kind of a lot of contracts there. But those did hit a max return of 224.56%. And I do want to look at that raw flow again here too. Just kind of like to show everybody what I'm seeing when it comes in. I always like to pop that results out so I can see that full flow there. So again, you can see right when that flow starts to come in, spike in the IV, again, another repeated hits ascending fill. We're following that spot up here, seeing that IV increase, IV continuing to increase, spot price really increasing here. So that's where you got that 228 fill there. I went with the high end there. And you can even see we had some more contracts come in here a little bit after. IV continued to spike. Red like a buy, obviously. A little harder with weeklies and theta, but very nice move on those if you did hold through that. So up next, we had the 628 IWM 186 puts. These coming in here on the 29th. Oops, sorry. Let's pop this back to the 29th. So you can see we had a bunch of ask side hits here. About 16,000 contracts traded on this chain. And you can see most of that carrying over here. So looking at this raw flow feed, again, you can see IV. This IV is not really moving, but let me remove that time filter and see if we can get a better view. Sometimes when it's a little backdated like that, sometimes it won't always stick, but let's go back to the 29th here. We'll see if it lets me. Perfect. So here you go. So you can see that repeated hits ascending fill. Small little drop in that IV, but again, look at that spot increase there. And timing's a little different, obviously. 11:55, that's early in the morning. 15:09, a little later in the day, so that IV is going to probably be a little different. But again, that IV staying up. And you can see the one that's a little closer, that fourth whale that came in here. You can see that IV spike there. So that's where you're seeing that IV spike. And you can see all that volume coming in here. You can see that put net premium coming up there as well. And these ones made a good move the next day. So let me pop this to the 30th here, because this one it'll look better on the 30th. So you can see here's our whales here, 406, 411 I have is the average fill. These gap down, or IWM gap down that next day, and you can see we hit a high of 569 here that next day, and we have a big chunk of about 16,000 contracts there. About half of those carried over, so somebody probably bought half and the whale sold half, because you can see about half of those coming off the open interest the next day. But those hitting that 411 to 569, that's a 38% return on those. And that was our max for the week, because if we pop this out to Friday, you can see they're down a little bit now, but hit our target. And for those, again, kind of tuning in for the first time, I look for at least kind of like 10-15% for a minimum return on flow if I'm copying flow. So keep that in mind as well. And this is also now sitting at 70% multi-leg too. So probably some multi-leg rolling, all that going on in there. But those again running from that 411 to 569 for 38.44%. Up next we have another IWM 187 put this time, and this one is a little different here because this whale actually cut the same day. So you can see this whale coming in 397. Looks like they cut them here at 398 and 399. So they sold them same day, and we can see that here with that volume and open interest. Only 2,000 contracts coming over here. So that whale actually sold same day, but these again hit a high. We actually, because I had a gap down that next day, these hit a high of 6 on the day. So that was giving, let's see, so sorry here, 397, and they hit a high of 6 on the next day. So those hit a nice 50% there, 50.75%. And seeing some more action here, obviously multi-leg now. A lot of the IWM puts that come in are multi-leg, so keep that in mind. Always look at that multi-leg. I like to watch that as well, just to make sure a large chunk isn't multi-leg. This is a large chunk. So that one did actually make that good move though. So again, 398 to that 6 for a high. That's a 50.75% gain. Max return there. So up next on the 30th, we had the Tesla 718 385 calls. Let's take a peek at these. Nice clean fill here. Can see obviously nothing on that chain, so we know it's a completely an opening trade. Majority of that did carry over, and can see they probably took some off that same day there. And again, I was looking at that raw flow feed, which is always something you gotta always do, because not everything at the ask can be a buy and not everything at the bid is a sell. So when we come look at the Teslas again, oops, let's see. Let's pop back here and see if it'll work. Sometimes the previous week stuff can get a little funky. So this one's a repeated hit descending fill. So now when you see that, you might think, oh, that fill's descending. This is a sell. Not necessarily, because when you look at this, here's your descending fill. You're 1 cent below that ask. And it's not a huge size of the contract, or that full contract that came in. And you're still on the ask there. So this is why just looking at something face value isn't always going to get you what you want, because you might look at these, oh, they're selling these at the ask. No. So when you come up here and look at that spot comes back up, you see a little rise here towards the end. And again, here's that entry, 671. These hit that high of 970 here on the 2nd, so on Friday. So those moving 44.78%. And we'll kind of pick up here. So those again making a nice move there. All right, so up next we have the 5.9 Nike 58 calls. Again, on a very nice move on these ones. Here's our entry, 2,500 contracts, 82 cents a contract, and you can see majority of that volume coming in here on the 29th. Again, making a very nice move up here, hitting the high here at the end of the week, hitting 176. So those moving from 83 to 176. And we'll look at the raw flow feed on this one too. So again, can just see that IV increasing. Spot price coming in at the ask, a little bit below the ask there, but still on that ask side. But making a very nice move up here. So those contracts, again, moving from that 83 to 176, 112.05% on those. SMCI, the 530.34 calls. Again, 2 big hits here right before close. 500 contracts there, another 400 there, so 1,000. Not seeing that full volume carry over, so could have seen some little extra action. Here's some multi-leg going on as well, but again, making a nice move here from our call out. From that 234 to 335 for a high, that's 43.16% on those. Looks like whatever is volume still, they're not really getting taken off the table yet. And Amazon, so these are the contracts from Friday now. So Amazon, so some of these didn't make a move yet, obviously, because some of them are a little longer, like the Amazon one here, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on all of these. 2 big hits on the Amazon here. Got 3.9 million in total premium. Had a small little pop here from that 438 entry. Came up and hit 477. They're trading about 393 right now, so that whale's down about 12%. Not going to spend a lot of time on that, but you look at that net put premium on the day, a lot of net put premium, a lot of put volume as well. So moving on here, that would be one of our losers for the week so far, even though it came in Friday. Google next. These made a nice intraday move here. Our entry was 84. I've got 85 here. So again, this one was a really interesting one, because when this came in, we had that initial entry here of 4,500 contracts, followed by another one of 85. And then we had a nice run up here. These hit a high of 146 on the day. They moved 73.81% there. Gonna assume that some of this volume is gonna probably come off with these being weeklies and large bid side candle there. So another good move there. Up next, we had the 516-440 UNH calls, United Healthcare. And this one, I want to look at that raw flow feed right away, because when you look at this, and sorry, let me pop this out here. Again, this is where you can get fooled if you're not paying attention. It's telling you again, repeated hits descending fill. This is why you always have to look at the raw flow feed. Coming in at the ask, and let's see where that descending fill is actually first. So I want to find that. Trying to find where that is. So here you go. Little descending fill. It's one contract. One contract. That is not a majority of the trade. So that's why I'm always saying watch that. And when you look at some of this flow here too, all coming at the ask, wider bid ask spread. Just watching that spot price here, a little drop there. And you can see here, kind of towards the end here, especially on this one. This one's one of the ones I should stick out to people. You're coming in above the ask here. Coming in above the ask with pretty good size of that trade. So really interesting there as well. That is something when you're looking at that raw flow feed that should stick out to you. And again, these made a nice little intraday move as well. Obviously some more time on those, but from that 134 entry, they hit 160 on the day. Whale hit about 19%. Good trade there. Up next, we had the 5.9 NUE 127 calls. Again, a lot of call premium, call volume. Here is your entry here, 1,500 contracts. Easily can tell it's an opening trade. No multi-leg. Little run here. We hit 120 on the day. So those move 60% intraday actually. And our last two, the 731.60 IBIT calls. This one is one you'll want to check on Monday if you're kind of watching. Can't fully assume, but I would probably assume they're ads. They're 89 days out. Two nice ask side candles coming in here. These would be running at about 407 from that 420 entry. That whale's down 3%. Obviously a lot of time on those. A lot of net call premium. A lot of call volume. And our last one, and this one was a very interesting one because these HUMs coming in at 114, moving up to 361 intraday, and we'll see why this is very, very unusual. And again, looking at that net call premium, call volume up. You look at this one, and this is a very, very I almost call it a layup, but everything's not certain. But when you see something like this, you see that urgency. Here comes your IV. You have repeated hits ascending fill. That IV spikes. IV drops a little bit here, but right here at the end where you have all your size and premium. Big spike there at the end. And then you have a sweeps followed by the floor with another big spike in that IV. And look at the spot. They're coming in 10 cents above the ask with size and premium. Very, very, I like to say, urgent to get in that trade. So that's something you kind of want to watch for. And you can see here, if we come back here to the chart, again, great intraday move on those at 114 up to 361. 213.91% same day. That whale looks like they're still in 6 days on them though, but very nice intraday move on those. That was probably the easiest finding piece of flow there. So, but little shorter video this week, covered all of our topics, and as always, I like to tell everybody if you're interested in trying unusual whales, it just kind of takes some filtering to get used to finding these trades that stick out and just kind of some basic reading. If you want to join Stock Hub, it's less than $1 a day to get these flow alerts and all that, tons of market data. But that is all I got for this week. Have a great weekend, everyone.